What is the most important part of a horror movie? Is it the writing? Is it the cinematography? Is it the makeup? Okay, but honestly, it's like, it's all important. I get that. Like every little piece that makes up the end result of a movie that makes you feel all the things is important. But if I really had to choose, I'd say it's the music, because the music can make or break like everything else, any other component to the movie for me. I love music. Like, I really love music. I was a choir kid from the 4th grade all the way up until my senior year doing my undergrad. I did the whole like master musician test in high school, like a true music nerd. Assume that like when I'm not like sat here in front of the camera, or I'm not doing a live on Twitch, or I'm at my day job, I am listening to music. Like, I need it like I need air to breathe. And I feel like I never really get around to talking about the music in horror movies enough. It can be hard to illustrate like my point in a discussion, especially like on YouTube here, because that would require like playing a section of the piece of music, which could lead to like copyright trouble. But I wanted to share my favorite horror movie scores. I'm gonna keep soundtracks separate from this conversation. I feel like that could be a separate video. So this is just gonna be music like made, composed specifically to accompany a certain film. And just to my point earlier, the fact that I can't really like illustrate what I'm saying by playing the song for you on the video, I do have a playlist that includes all of the scores that I'm talking about in this video, and then some. It's like my favorite horror movie scores. It'll be linked in the description if you want to listen. Maybe you can listen along during the video. So these are really in no particular order except the last one, which I'll save for my absolute favorite, of course. So I have to admit, when it comes to the movies as a whole, I do prefer the remake of Suspiria, but when it comes to the music specifically, Goblin's score for the original Suspiria reigns supreme. The synthy feel to it is very appropriate for the time this movie was released, but it also fits the cinematography and lighting in the movie, which is really important. A lot of the set pieces are made to look more whimsical and dreamlike, not quite realistic, like something off about them. And the lighting achieves the same feeling, and I feel like the music does such a good job of matching that. Like, it truly matches the vibe of the movie. And when you're just listening to it separately, like, I feel like if you listened to this music and hadn't seen the movie before, I don't think you would necessarily like come up with the images in this movie, but when you know of them, like when you experience it together in a film, it just makes sense. The music truly feels like you're a character being thrust into this world of witches and you're kind of like discombobulated because you're in a foreign country and you're out of your element a little bit, and then the supernatural thing is happening, and somehow the music just gets that. Now, when it comes to franchise horror scores, I can't not talk about Charles Bernstein's work for A Nightmare on Elm Street. I really feel like he tapped into like what a nightmare would sound like. Like, it feels dreamy and flowy, that kind of like, you know, being in your subconscious kind of feeling. But then you have these drum beats that come in. Almost sounds like heartbeats or like your pulse pounding. That reminds you that like something is lurking. And talking specifically about the opening titles here, there's these moments that feel like children's rhymes almost, which is very fitting for Freddy Krueger. It's like almost taunting in a way, and it's those moments, those like kind of taunting moments where they utilize vocals, which this is going to be a pattern for me. You will see in this video. I always lean towards like an inclusion of choir moments. But it works really well here, especially because they're like childlike voices. There's another pattern that you're gonna see in this video if you haven't really picked up on it already. I really love the combination of like a kind of scary, creepy, dreadful sound with some like whimsy. I just think it harkens back to like childhood Halloween time. And Douglas Pipes' score for Trick or Treat does that so well. Something like the main title is a bit more dramatic. It kind of reminds me of the iconic Psycho score. But then you have moments like when we're introduced to Rhonda. The music for her scene is just so lovely. There's something childlike about it. It's mesmerizing. It's a little playful. And like ultimately I feel like it's just so sweet and it fits the character so well. It's like I hear that music and I want to embody that feeling all the time, if that makes sense. It's sometimes really hard to describe how like music makes you feel. But the whole score for Trick or Treat is big Halloween vibes. I think it's the perfect combination of like kind of scary and kind of whimsical, which is Halloween to me. You got to have those two things. I would be remiss if I did not talk about the score, kind of specifically the main theme from Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which was done by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind. The iconic intro of the horn, just kind of like, it's like, just kind of like plodding along. It fits so incredibly well with those beautiful shots of the mountains, the landscape. It really makes you feel so small and alone in this isolated area. And it's truly perfect to like set up all of the horrifying things that we're about to see. Like the score just sets you right up for that. Like the use of the brass in that moment, just it makes it feel like a warning. And so I feel like there's something that like when I hear it, it's such a great piece of music, but it like kind of makes me like tense up a little bit. Like I gotta get ready for something horrible about to happen. It's an iconic piece of work, honestly. Taking a sharp left turn from that, I want to talk about the score from Lisa Frankenstein. The whole movie is such a vibe, and the score done by Isabella Summers really matches that. If you listen to it straight through, it's kind of all over the place, but it's a movie about a teenager and teenage love specifically, so I feel like it actually works really well. Standouts are the tracks Lisa Meets the Creature, which gives you like the 80s synth fun, but also feels like a classic monster movie score. Like there's elements to it that really remind me of like old Universal monster pictures, which I adore. I love the nod to the classics, especially for this movie. But then you have something like the Creature's love theme, which is just so beautiful. Is it weird that I totally consider walking down the aisle to this track? Maybe a little, because the music gets a little bit more tragic at the end, because this is the part where we're kind of like seeing the creature's backstory, but it's just so pretty. Listening to it, you can totally tell why Lisa was enamored with this guy. And I also just particularly love when horror movies give you that kind of beauty and prettiness in a score, because I feel like, I mean, we all know horror has so many facets, so many hats, you know. There's kind of like the gore fest ones, there's like the ultra disturbing, and then there's ones that kind of like lean into this like hauntingly beautiful kind of vibe, and I love when the music kind of reflects that. And I feel like music does a really good job of kind of conveying that when a movie decides to lean into that vibe. So speaking of like gorgeous pieces of horror movie music, the whole of Helen's theme is just, it's gorgeous. The piano, gorgeous. The choir, you know by now I love a choir. Philip Glass's score for Candyman is just so gorgeous. Gorgeous is the only way I can describe it. There's something very church-like about it, something very classic, something kind of old. And I mean that in a good way, as the movie is about like an urban legend, a piece of folklore. I also have to specifically point out the Cabrini Green track. Like the choir is particularly stand out in that track. I think that kind of also adds to the church feel, if I'm being honest. And as a little aside, just kind of like a little like sub note to Candyman being one of my favorite horror movie scores, I have to shout out Robert Aiki Aubrey Lowe, who did the score for the Candyman requel. I can't remember, the reboot requel by Nia DaCosta. What he did with the music box theme from the original for this new movie was amazing. Still maintains like the pretty haunting melody that we hear throughout the original Candyman, but it adds a layer of dread with this like low kind of synthy note throughout. Really, just the whole of the score for the Candyman requel is great. I had to mention that as well. Now, Danny Elfman is just one of my favorite composers of all time. His sound is so unique, and like when you look at his filmography, he's done the score for so many different movies, so many different genres, but I feel like it's always recognizable to a point. Like there's always a moment when I'm watching a movie and if I don't know right away that Danny Elfman has done it already, there'll be a moment where I'm kind of like, this feels like Danny Elfman, and then I'm usually correct. And I could really just say like I love all of Danny Elfman's music right here, and that would be true, but I want to mention two in particular, the first being the score for Sleepy Hollow. It fits the story so perfectly. It's light and dreamy where it needs to be, and then like bold and dramatic at other times. And Elfman utilizes vocals a lot in this score in particular, and I love that. You guys know by now I love that. I think choirs are underutilized in horror movie scores, and just movie scores in general, actually. There's something about Elfman's work as a whole, but in this movie also, it's both creepy and whimsical. And while he leans a bit more to the dramatic and creepy for Sleepy Hollow, there's that bit of whimsy there at certain points where it needs to be, and it fits the story so well, as Ichabod Crane is a bit of a comical character. As scary as the story is, like when the original story is also kind of funny, and I feel like Danny Elfman just really tapped into that for this movie in a great way. Now for the last one, which is also Danny Elfman's score, but this is one like if I had to pick, like what's your favorite horror movie score of all time, it's got to be the score for Beetlejuice. I don't really know how to put into words how this score makes me feel, which is why I love music. I feel like sometimes it just hits you in a way that only your heart can understand, and there's just no words to describe it. So like, so how do I put this? I want to like live in this score, like in this music. I want to live there. I don't know how one would do that, but that's what I want to do. Like, I don't know the best way I can put it. It's so singular. It's quirky, it's fun, it's creepy, it's spooky, it's ethereal. Like, I just want to live in this score. I feel like I can't put it any other way. I feel like it alters my like chemistry whenever I hear it somehow. Something like changes, like my vibration changes, I don't know. And I feel like it just perfectly matches the movie. I don't think there's any other like way anyone could have done the music for Beetlejuice that would do it justice the way Danny Elfman did. And I love it so much, and I just want to live there. I don't know how to do that, but I want to live in that music. So now I want to hear from you. What are your favorite horror movie scores of all time? Let me know so maybe I can add some of them to my playlist. I appreciate you watching this video, even though I couldn't really like play any music for you to illustrate my points. I will see you next week with more new videos. Until then, stay strange. Bye.